So if you sell courses, coaching, consulting, you've probably used the old 997 or 1997 or 9997 pricing at some point. It's the 7 on the end that has been wheeled out again and again and again and again by info marketers for many, many years now. Okay, so what I want to hook you up with in this one is a way to stand out and do things a little bit differently. I'm going to cut over to a training that I did for some private clients a little while ago that shares 10 advanced pricing strategies that are going to allow you to do things a little bit differently in your courses, in your coaching, in your consulting. And there's some really, really cool stuff in here that will allow you to build recurring revenue. It will allow you to ascend clients, to cross-sell clients, to downsell clients, to reduce risk or perceived risk simply through your pricing. All right, and there's definitely going to be some in here that you haven't used before, that you haven't seen before. And you can start using price as a mechanism to strengthen your offer, but also to stand out a little bit in the marketplace. Okay, I'm going to cut over to this one right now. You can watch it. You can go use these. Let me know how much you make with them, and then head over to jacobcaris.com at any point if you want to look into working together further. I appreciate you taking the time to check out this video. I know your time is valuable, and there's a lot of other things you could be watching on YouTube. So enjoy, go use this, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers. So, because I'm a nerd, I find this shit really interesting. But whenever I like, I get a lot, obviously, like you guys, I get a lot of emails from different marketers. One thing I always try and pay attention to is how they're pricing their offers, because I find that really, really fascinating. And I think if you can price in a unique way, it helps you stand out. And there's actually some really cool like ninja shit you can do that will make it easier to get the sale. It can de-risk it from the consumer's perspective, even if it's not really changing. Even if it's not burdening you with incremental risk or reducing the amount that you get now. There's some cool stuff we can do. And so I wanted to drop on you guys today 10. They're advanced is probably a loose use of the word, but they're not the standard. All right, I'm rolling out a $997 offer like everyone in the market is doing. So call it advanced insofar as it's thinking outside the box a little bit more than normal. These are going to be used in different situations, which we can talk about unless the drilling becomes completely terminal. So different situations, these are going to be deployed. Some of these we've used, some of them are ones I've picked up from other places that I've got on the list to test out. But if you're aware of them and you've got this doc handy, next time you roll out an offer, you can use one of them and do something a little bit different. So I've given them completely stupid names, but at least it helps prompt kind of what they are. So the first one is a model that is what we're actually going to be using for this inner circle program to begin with. And then it will change slightly, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So longer term, higher end kind of continuity, right? So let's say it's a 6 to 12 month program, doing a monthly rate on that of like, $1,000 to $2,000 a month, could be $500 a month, but a higher end continuity for a longer type program. You could also do it for a shorter type of program. You could do, I've done up to 5 payments on like a 2 or 3 day event. So what most people kind of limit themselves to is it's like, all right, well, it's only a 2 or 3 day event, so I've got to kind of collect the money for that now. When we live in a culture and we live in a world where everyone's paying for stuff later, right? Like look at, in Australia we've got Afterpay, but like all these buy now, pay later businesses, right? Credit cards, your house you pay off over 30 years. Like we live in a culture of instant gratification, pay it off over the long term. So, don't discount that in your pricing. Yes, you are taking on more risk, and you need to be careful about who you sell to. But if you do cherry pick people, then you're going to have less problem. But longer term continuity, and then presenting a one-time offer. So we're using this in Rolodex at the moment. We've got 10 by 175, and then we present a $1,000 one time. This is the model we're going to use with the inner circle as well. And the reason we're using a one time at the moment
with a new offer is because you don't know your numbers, right? So until you really know like what's my stick rate, I like the idea of having a one-time offer there that brings the cash flow forward. But eventually, once you know, like, all right, of the people I bring into X program, without fail, 80% stick, then you know your revenue per customer, and then you can kind of eliminate a one-time offer, or at least price the one-time offer accordingly based on that data, right? So that's what we're playing around with at the moment. Like I said, that's contingent on cherry picking. Like these longer term continuities are contingent on cherry picking the people very, very closely. Like I wouldn't do this with someone who I've had no dealings with in the past, and I don't like offer, little quick back and forth, because I want to get a read on them, and are they someone that's going to come in for a month? Because you're kind of taking the risk on initially with these, and it's not until you get a few payments in that risk pendulum kind of swings a little bit. So I think you really need to be careful who you do this with. But if you do cherry pick the right people, it opens the door a lot wider, and it's a lot easier for people to say yes to $1,000 a month over 12 months, as opposed to like 10 grand today. Like that opens the door to, it's a hell of a lot easier sale than trying to squeeze, $10,000 out of someone one time. But it needs to be for the right customer. And then having the OTO, like the discounted one-time price, which is what I mean by that, like, pay it in full now kind of discount. You're still going to pick up the people that have the capacity to pay at one time, because if that gap is enough, they're going to take that one time in order to lock in the discount anyway. So this is what I like, and we're playing around with this at the moment, but worth thinking about for either your longer term programs or your shorter term programs. I think it would lean more towards the longer term stuff, because you've then got a connection between deliverable and investment, right? Like if the program's running for a longer time and the payment's running for a longer time. But that's not to say you have to limit yourself to that. Like, as I said, we've done 4 or 5 months on a couple of day event, and it was fine. But it's got to be the right people, because otherwise you could definitely fall into a trap. One thing we experienced with doing these longer term payment plans with SAA is, if we were selling, it was okay. If affiliates are selling, the stick rate's shit, because they're so far removed from us that people don't care about defaulting as much. People don't care about canceling. But if they've had a conversation with one of us, they feel more inclined to want to complete. Now, that's not an absolute. You're still going to get people who pull out early. But that's what we kind of experienced, right? This next one is another one that we're going to play around with, integrated into this, which is, having a market price for a product and then presenting an existing customer discount. So if you guys are using like your Google Doc model, or, however you're sending your offers over, it could be like that one-to-one consulting agreement that we've spoken about. Presenting people with, a slightly discounted rate for being an existing customer is another way that you can play around with, making it more of an irresistible deal for folks that you've worked with previously, and you've got that goodwill built up. And you can get really creative with these. Like, you can mix and match these. I just wanted to present you guys with a few to think about, because 90% of people are just dropping like these flat 7, like 997
for this whole I'll take the risk thing. I really, when we talked about that, even with the whole, how I even got into this in the first place, and I love that idea. I've been trying to think about how I would price it, because I remember, I think when we talked about in the past, it's like, let's say, like, you think about how much you really want to get up front. Yep. And like kind of having to be technically okay with that a little bit. Almost like if you want to do something for 2,500, up front, say, hey, we can do this for 5,500, 25 now, 3K later. That's kind of like the mindset you got there, basically, right?
100%. Yeah, you need to go, all right, what do I really want to get for this? And that becomes your front end payment. Juice it up a little bit and put that on the back end after a result. Yeah. Right. So if I was doing I did this one on a workshop. So it was a 3-day workshop. I'd made the price tag $4,500 and did 2 now and 2.5 after 20, I think 20, 30, maybe it was even more. I don't know. But I knew I was happy with $2,000 ahead for a 3-day workshop. Right.
Yeah.
It also has a lot of power because, if you're writing out your sales doc and it's like the price is X, you're without that being what you're charging, you're elevating your status because that's what you're pricing it at. That is the actual price. It's just what you're collecting on today is lower. So it shows a lot of confidence and a lot of positioning power in it.
I like that because even I've talked to you about this, how I kind of do the whole urgency thing a lot of the times. But realistically, I give people discounts for jumping in earlier than later. So at the end of the day, I could almost treat it. I'm going to bring this up again. I should start treating it like that. But realistically, instead of having it's less urgency, I guess, but it's more so, that's technically, let's say for my 2,500, I tell people it's 5K. But if they buy now, it's 2,500. Instead of doing that, if you buy today, you can get it for 2,500, but it's technically 5,500. But you don't have to do that until you make your first 20K online or something like that.
Yeah. That's like the fast action thing. Sammy Ovens really popularized that in the online space.
I know you're not a fan of it.
I don't mind it, but it's kind of like, it's like, why? Like, there's no real reason. But like, I get it. Yeah, you want me to act now, but if you think about it from a positioning perspective, it actually has a negative effect. It's like you're willing to haircut 50% of your revenue if I sign up today instead of tomorrow. From a business, that just, for me, that doesn't scream like confidence or strong positioning. Yeah. It screams like cash grab.
I hear you, man. I hear you. It's like the whole double-edged sword thing,
right?
As opposed to letting people sit on it for too long. Because I've tried both ways. Yeah, man. You're totally right.
I'd test this then.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, though. I think that, because here's what I like about this, is it shows a lot more confidence in what you got. Like, reality, I'm saying, hey, I'll help you. You don't have to pay the second half until you make 20K. In reality, now I'm trying to picture, like, okay, like, shit, this second 20K looks like it's probably going to happen. Because realistically, he's got that much.
Very confident. Yeah.
I like that, man.
But then this is having the opposite effect to the fast action discount, where you're slashing your prices, right? And it's like, well, why would you do that? Like, what if you see something at the shops and it's like 50% off, it's like, what the fuck's wrong with it? Well, that's the way I think about it anyway. I'm like, if you're at, like, we were at this like furniture store the other day and Liana saw these cushions and they were like 50% off, and I'm looking at them, I'm like, where's the fucking coffee stain? Like, what's wrong with these things? Someone sat down on this couch and they've spilt their coffee all over. What's wrong? Whereas this is, it's the exact same thing, right? You're still getting the same amount. You're still anchoring a higher price, and that's what the point of the fast action thing is. It's like, oh, it's anchor 5K and then let's make 2.5. You're still doing exactly the same thing. It's just you now look like the superhero instead of looking like old Gil, and that's a Simpsons reference for the people who watch Simpsons.
I was over my head there.
The next one's a real simple one. This is one we've used on SAA a ton. One timer and then a shorter payment plan with a slight premium. Typically these shorter ones you'll be looking to pick up like a 20 to 40% kind of premium on the payment plan, depending on how long it is. You're still going to have drop off even on the shorter payment plans. You're still going to have people drop off, especially with affiliates promoting. But much better than the longer term ones. So that one's that's a pretty simple one. That one's pretty commonly used. This next one is one I saw this week actually, and I want to try it because I think it's cool. Let's say you're helping someone like pretty hands-on with maybe like a small group, right? To achieve a certain result. You slap a price tag on it, whatever you want to slap on it. And then if we don't make back that amount, I'll refund you the balance. You know, if I said, Justice, you and I are going to roll out your inner circle program, you and I are going to roll out something, your affiliate program, whatever, right? Like, we'll work together for 90 days. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan of attack. It's going to cost you 15 grand. If we don't make 15 grand in our time together, I'll refund you the difference, which means that, again, on a pure financial basis, there's no risk. There's a time risk a little bit, because, like, you know, I'm going to put time and energy into this, but from a raw financial, you know, the economics of it, there's no risk. This is just like, use something different than a 7, right? Like, all of our stuff is pretty round numbers at this point. I think nearly everything is just round numbers. But, you know, there's a section in one of Ben Settle's books where he talks about where this 7 thing came from. And I think the misconception is, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the misconception is that there's like some magic power in 7. Whereas I think the reason it was popularized is because it was different originally, and it's not different anymore. So, you know, putting a random number, like, you could just go, you know, you could go 1, 2, 3, 4.56, like, just make that your price. Like, why not, right? Most of you are selling digital stuff. There's no, it can be whatever, you know, make it random stuff, just make it stand out. I think that's where the 7 thing came from, but it's just been adopted, and now everyone's like, I'd be more inclined not to use this these days, to be honest. This is just a standard. This is another one we've done where if you're splitting it over 2 months, you can get away with doing no premium if you really trust the people, and it makes it easier for people to get started. So, you know, if it's 10 grand, 5 this month, 5 next month, just literally letting them split the payment. Maybe they've got a credit limit. Maybe they've got, you know, it's cash flow dependent, just 30 days apart. The good thing with those situations is, you know, if they don't make the payment, you're in control of your content, you're in control of your groups, you're in control of your time, and you can remove people. There's not that much of a big risk if it's only over 2 months, because you're still collecting half up front. You could do a small premium. You could do like 10%, you know, if you wanted to bump it up a little bit. So you could do 6,000 one time or 6,600 over 2 months, like, just get a little bit more as coverage. There's implied partnership. This is similar to the I'll take the risk. It's just 50% now and then 50% when you get X result. So that way it's like, I'm coming to the table, I'm meeting you halfway. This next one is an interesting one. And this is something from talking to Travis. So I'm not claiming credit here, but what he said he's found in his 600 years of experience at this point is, if someone's willing to pay $500 for a one-time product, $1,000 for a one-time product, $2,000 for a one-time product, a lot of those people, a big chunk of those people, would be willing to commit to that on a monthly basis. Why that is, you know, maybe that's the amount of cash at the end of the month that they've got set aside for investments like your product. That's their risk tolerance in a given month for that amount. Because I was talking to him about, well, how do you kind of go about setting your prices on your back end offers where you're doing a recurring? And he goes, typically I'll start by looking at my front end offer if I've already got it, and that'll be my starting point, because if I've got people in my audience who are willing to spend $1,000, they're going to be willing to spend 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pay of $1,000 as well. And then this last one is one I've done a couple of times, and it comes from, it's a Kennedyism, where what he used to do was he'd roll people out for a day of consulting, and he charged just under 20 grand for the day. And I was reading about this. It was in, where was it? I think it's in his pricing strategies or price positioning training, which is like a really old training. But he'd roll people out there for the day, and they essentially paid 20 grand for the day, but it was really just a 20 grand to see if I want to work with you kind of thing. And they jump through all these hoops and they get out there for the day. And then, you know, they go through the whole day together. And what he'd do is, throughout the day, they'd be going, all right, well, that's something we could do together. That's something we could do together. It comes to the end of the day and you'd list out all the tasks and you say, all right, so, are these the things you're wanting help with? And they'd go, yeah, so it's like VSL, emails, funnel, or whatever it is, whatever the relevant thing is. These are the things we're going to work on together. Then what he'd do is he'd go through and he'd write the time next to them. Okay. He'd say, that'll take a day, that'll take half a day, that'll take 2 days. And so for you, that might be, that'll take an hour, that'll take 3 hours, that'll take 4 hours. And so he'd add up all the hours or he'd add up all the days, depending on the situation. Then he'd multiply that by his rate. Now, the psychology here is that they've already accepted that rate because they've paid a day to be there. So for them, that rate is already reasonable. They're okay with it. They've accepted it. And then he'd apply like economies of scale discount. So you're buying more time at once rather than just one day. So you can have a discount. And it seems to work pretty well. It's like if people are willing to, if your hourly rate's $500 and someone's paid that once, and you say, I think we can do all this together. It's going to be 20 hours over the next month. I'll do a X% discount because we're going to be working together for a big chunk of time. They've already agreed. They can't dispute that rate because they've already paid it and they already accept it as reasonable. Otherwise, they wouldn't have paid it to be there in the first place. So you can kind of do a tailored offer that way on the fly. And that would be more for, one-to-one or done for you or done with you type stuff. But it's just, it's eliminating they can't dispute the rate because they've already paid that rate kind of thing.